again with Mr. Idrogo.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't ask at least one question about the war in Iraq. And the war there is certainly a major concern among most Americans. And despite assurances to the contrary, some Americans are very worried that the military draft will be reinstated, what with the Guard and Reserve being extended to stretched to the limit, or so it seems. And there's certainly nobody is really sure when our involvement in Iraq will end. What are your views about the draft and our situation in Iraq and Afghanistan, for that matter?
Personally, my views are that we really don't have a need to reinstate the draft. I believe, and as a matter of fact, I'm speaking from experience, having been a federal officer for a couple of decades and a Navy commander, and lived all around the world, and actually having been in a couple of wars myself, the Yugoslav conflict, and we got called out of there, had to bust through the Suez Canal and get down to Somalia after the Army had their Black Hawk Down incident, and try and provide some support for them. We don't really need it, the draft itself, and I will work as hard as possible to keep it from occurring. I believe these other candidates would allow it to occur. The incumbent himself, while the Vietnam draft was going on, was hiding out in the Air National Guard. I mean, you got another George Bush story there, so I wouldn't rely on the incumbent to do anything properly on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Idrogo. And Mr. Gonzalez.
I wasn't aware that Mr. Idrogo was a war hero of any type, and I'd be willing to hear his war stories any time. But I proudly served in the Air National Guard, and I continue to be proud of that service. 40% of the men and women in Iraq today come from Air National Guard, Army National Guard, and Reserve components. That was never intended to be in this particular set of circumstances. In our entire history, we've never had this. It is an unworkable situation